Hello, everyone, and welcome to another My Music. Now, I'm really looking forward to this conversation because when the record company sent me over the album to listen to, I started listening to it, and I kind of went off into a kind of my own little world, really, because, well, for a start, it took me back to sitting in a gymkhana field or in a car in a gymkhana field while the rest of my family abandoned me when I was about 14, listening to Magnetic Fields by Jean-Michel Jarre, which was kind of where this album starts. But then it very quickly moves on to completely different areas, and there's some pop sensibility in there, and there's almost some prog in there, and I honestly don't know where this man's mind goes, but we'll be speaking to Brandon, who made all of this stuff happen, any minute now after this.
Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop. Keep on, don't stop.
So, Brandon, Restless
Hello.
Mosaic, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that was an okay introduction.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Were you-
loads of great detail in there.
Were you into things like, or have you been into things like Jean-Michel Jarre and Tomitar and where does your music listening come from that then allows you this creativity to make what you do?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. One I always want to be asked. My favorite artist of all time is Genesis. So we're
Really?
talking same decade. We're talking same decade, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I heard Firth
Are
of
we
Fifth
now?
for
Hang
the
on.
first time-
I was going to say, are we talking Gabriel Genesis or Collins Genesis?
Well, Tony Banks Genesis is the
Right.
is the real response here. Hence
Okay.
the keyboard elements. In some of my work, you can hear the kind of Tony Banks cross-handed playing that you hear on Lamb Lies Down Broadway, but also No Reply at All and Fading Lights. I mean, it's programmed stuff on my end, but I'm playing it cross-handed. I'm sequencing it cross-handed, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
the fuller answer is Tony Banks
Tony
Genesis,
Banks.
even though that's all of Genesis. I heard Firth of Fifth for the first time when I was about 15. And within the first few bars, I went, this is going to be my favorite song of all time, isn't it? And 25 years later, it still is. And loads of things have branched out from there. But you can say, for sake of this question, that it really starts with that Blood on the Rooftops from Wind and Wuthering. That's another big one for me. And a lot of things just kind of sit in the middle of those.
Yeah. So when I said prog in the middle of that, I wasn't far wrong, right?
You were very, very close. Yes.
Fine. Absolutely. Well, it's a great era of music to kind of pick up on. And I guess, there was a lot of overlap, especially in the sort of early work of people like Jarre, etc., because that was almost orchestral. And that's the thing about some of this music. I was also going to say, I also heard people like Philip Glass in some of what you do as well. So there is kind of that sort of modern orchestral kind of, or even quintet type thing going on with like little repetitive bits, but with strings and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I think it's not. I think the things that I have listened to and drawn inspiration from in that realm, that they have Philip Glass as an influence. So it has trickled down onto me to the extent that a lot of electronic music is exploring motifs and variations on theme. To the extent they owe some of that perspective to Philip Glass, then I'm definitely in that headspace. But the issue, and this is where you're right to think about pop sensibilities. It just largely comes from another angle, I think. I can't stay in one place for too many bars. Honestly, a lot of my perspective on this in the Restless Mosaic era of my music making has come from competitive cooking shows.
Wow, I love this.
Because when you're watching someone craft a dish, they're doing it over the period of time that they have to make it. And what I really love about that is that they're starting with a base, but they're adjusting as they go. They're adjusting textures, they're adjusting sweetness, they're adjusting all these different things. My production mentors at the start of this, they're a production group in LA called Lyre, Lyre. They mostly make Western pop and K-pop. They've got some hits over there. But as solo artists, one of them describes themselves as making bubblegum pop. That's a real term already. So I have said, and you can see this word on my debut album cover, and I have this in some bios in different places. I'm making piquant music. So if she's making bubblegum, I'm making like curries.
Yeah.
I want people to kind of pucker their lips and go, oh, huh, okay. But I'm balancing like sharpness of textures as I go. So that's where you might get like an acoustic plucked element after some pads, but then the thing after the pluck might be some rounded, humongous bass you might associate more with drum and bass. But a lot of it is these textural components, and competitive cooking shows are honestly the place where I see that kind of balancing, that sort of real-time balancing happen.
Oh, my friend, you're a genius. You're an absolute genius. Because what you're talking about there is, let me get this right. What you're saying is that there's the propensity there for this to go horribly wrong, right? You could completely overcook it, as in the music itself, because you're moving quickly between things and therefore not necessarily building something for the listener to just earworm and stick on, but you are adding elements which are attractive to the listener, but you've got to make sure that they come in and they go out at the right point, and it's not too much, and it doesn't just sound like a cacophony either, right?
100%. The arrangement, the use of layers is what binds my albums together. And I'll also note that album track sequencing is an important part of my production aesthetic as well, because if I can lock a few tracks into the spots that they will basically be on the album, then subsequent songs, I'm deciding whether to lengthen or shorten parts of those songs based on the context around it. Because you've heard so many albums over your time. I've heard fewer albums probably, but I've heard a lot of albums. And you know full well the albums that play out each of their ideas, and that would be fine in isolation, but over an album, when all the songs are about 40 seconds longer than they could be, you get a fatigue at the end. It's like, to go with the overcooked thing, if the steak isn't done to its fullest, your jaw gets tired.
Right.
And I experienced the same thing listening to some albums. So I'm getting tracks in place, but then deciding on usually a couple of interstitial tracks or tracks with a little bit less complexity to put in certain spots. My Spare Keys, which ends side one, so to speak, of this album, was very much designed as that kind of palette cleanser. I hadn't brought piano much into the album, so I made sure to make it piano heavy, give that kind of texture. But I also stayed to a very, just a very normal scale because of what was preceding it, because of what was coming after it.
I love this. Do you know what? You know what you need to do? to promote this album, you need to have an actual eat and listen. That would be great.
A show called Come Listen With Me, where we get four into a room.
Yeah, and they listen and eat at the same time, and everything is kind of measured, and it's, you know.
If you want a nice detail here, this is a title track shirt. This is a printout of what the song quality mirrors looks like in production. If you zoom in really hard on this, you can see the changing time signatures at the top, because it's got that little marker saying the chorus is here and all that sort of thing, and the various layers coming in.
Why isn't nobody else doing merch like that? That's genius, right?
I don't know. I like the subtlety of it, that it is 100% my brand, but it's also not something that hits people over the head with the fact that it is merchandise.
Yeah, there's great juxtaposition in the name of the project as well, Restless Mosaic, because I mean, original mosaics, if we talk like Roman times or whatever, would been painstaking, wouldn't they? They would have been absolutely painstaking. So I like the idea of, and it's almost like you have to think about and deconstruct the name of the projects as well, because what's restless? Is it the listener? Is it the mosaic itself? Is it
Yeah, I hadn't thought of how it would be perceived from that side. From my side, originating the name, the mosaic itself is restless. The picture I had in my head was
keeps moving, keeps changing.
Well, imagine if you were a one of these kind of city center common areas that people walk through. You often see a lot of like tile installations. People are walking by them. They might be part of the walkway, something like that, or they might form kind of a retaining wall, that sort of thing. As the son to my right wants to enter the chat, but if you are one of those mosaics, let's personify the mosaic for a bit. Loads of people are interacting with you. You have loads of expressivity that's bound up in you, but you can't interact with them. So if you had some sentience as a mosaic, you'd want to bust out of that environment and interact with everyone who's interacting with you. And you'd want to explore this world that's been around you for the whole time, but you're stationary in it. So really all the things that you've been describing that you feel in terms of these layers coming in and out, that is the restlessness within an inherent intricacy of production.
I'm kind of feeling like I can't remember which tube station it is. It might be like Covent Garden in London, but I'm kind of sensing kind of almost an image now of when you sit on the tube as it goes through Covent Garden, and there's like mosaics on the wall of the tube station. If I'm getting the tube station wrong, folks, I'm sorry, but it's one of the London tube stations.
We can just say Mornington Crescent to be sure.
We'll say that one, yeah. But it has all of these little mosaic bits and whatever. But the train's moving, the people are moving. The mosaic is static, but it's feeling the movement at the same time. Right?
100%. That's exactly the image that I wanted to convey with the name.
Next time I'm there, I'm going to take a photo. I'll send it to you.
Oh, that'd be great. I would love that.
We'll take a photo and I'll post it and I'll copy you in and we'll go. This explains it.
Yeah, everybody listening, everybody watching, send me mosaics around you because yeah, people comment on them if they're people touch them, people walk on them so they get all these experiences, but how do they interact back?
Oh, brilliant. Where is your favorite mosaic in the world? Where's the best one that you've ever been to?
Oh, that I don't have a mosaic as such, but I'll tell you the next best thing that fairly well counts. I don't know where this is located now. I know where it was located when I saw it, which was outside the art museum in Charlotte, North Carolina. I didn't live in North Carolina, but I'd driven 8 hours to take a temporary job, and I had a 15-minute work break. So I left my sardine-packed office building and just walked around downtown a bit. And by the art museum, there was this, I would say it's about 8 to 10 feet high, rainbow-colored segmented skull.
Wow.
And because it was a skull and because it was bigger than a human, and also quite wide, I would say about 5 feet wide, something like that. When I was there and took my own picture of it, there were children playing in the nasal cavity, playing around the teeth and that sort of thing. It was, you could interact, you could be in the skull in that way, but it looked almost Caribbean.
Yeah.
In the way it had been painted, but it had most of the primary rainbow colors in it. And so yeah.
Mosaics have always been quite a thing for me. I remember at a very young age, we went, my history teacher took us to Verulamium in St. Albans, right? And you heard of that?
It is ringing bells. And
Okay.
I've been to Hadrian's Wall, so I'm at least like kind of going, because Verulamium is ancient Roman we're talking, right?
Right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So I've been to British settlements of roughly the same era, or at least of the same era for conversational purposes.
Right. Okay. So that's exactly what we're talking about here. And then there's like a picture of this guy's head with like fire coming out, and it's just great, just fantastic. How do you start composing? Where do you start from?
This album, because I was writing far more lyrics than have been in the project to date. This album started almost entirely lyrically.
Wow.
Previous albums, it has usually been something composed that starts in my head, with day job and all these different things and what have you. The time I have in front of my computer to play around and compose, it's not a great return on investment. Whereas if I'm editing some very long document at work, which is a large part of what I do, I can be composing in my head the whole time. So it's very much a function of available resources for composing. But the bit that I think you will find the most interesting out of that is, I write down my lyrics as I develop them because it'd be hard to retain them otherwise. But I don't write down my music ideas. And the reason that I don't is quality control. Basically, if I can't retain it in my head, if it's not catchy enough to stick in my head,
wow,
why would I represent to you that it's catchy? So right. I want my, hooks and the, various hooks and phrases and these sorts of things, various, what if I took swatch of X genre and merged it with swatch of Y genre? I want those things to stick in my head for days, to develop and evolve for days, so that by the time I have capacity to record them, they're begging to be made.
Right. So it's almost a bit like, when you sat in front of the TV when you were a kid and the Milky Way advert came on and it's like, the red car and the blue car had a race, and you just like, that's it, and it's stuck. Yeah. Right? And you're just like, okay, that works because I can't get that out of my head now.
Right. I want the hookiness to start here before I play any notes.
Mm. And if you can recall it, it's going in because
Yeah.
it makes sense. God, so much of this makes sense.
And I hope that you and other listeners feel that. Not that you know it's there, but I want these things to kind of operate on the back end.
Yeah.
As a means of demonstrating intentionality, really from the jump.
I found listening to it, I mean, I feel it's incredibly playful and yet provocative at the same time. You know, and it, yeah, and very moving. It's all of those things all together. So yeah, you've done a great job, my friend. You've done a really great job. Yeah.
That honestly, like, that means a lot because you listen to so many different things.
Lots. Really lots. People often ask, how much music do you listen to? It's probably, I mean, in amongst trying to do this, 4 or 5 hours of music a day. So it's a lot, and I've been listening to music intently for years. So yeah, you're doing a fantastic job. And I just love the whole way that you're coming at it and thinking about your music and the construction of your music and what you're drawing for people. This is very much feels like proper art, right?
Well, it's great that you mention it that way. This recording background, and it's my default background for all interactions. This is a synesthetic representation of a song from my last album that a friend of mine in Switzerland volunteered to make for me.
Wow.
So if you can see at the bottom, I might have to duck out a little bit so you can see it a little bit better.
So whose synesthesia was it? Their synesthesia.
Yes.
Their synesthesia. Right. So they have synesthesia.
Yes, she volunteered. She volunteered to make me some art out of her synesthesia off a song of my choice. And wow. I chose the closing song of my last album, Shadwan. So you can see a little bit that there are these segmented dark lines down at the bottom. Those are where the 8th note bass stabs enter. So if you saw the broader picture, it's a rectangle that a Zoom background or a StreamYard background can't contain. But yes, this is a time lapse of what she sees in the song. And when I got it, I basically made it my default background for everything because I love it so much. It's the header on my Bandcamp page. It's my background for everything because it captures so much of the essence of where, visual evocation that's inherent in the name. And, inherent in some of the ways some of my approach meets the audio.
Seriously, I'm completely blown away. I think there should be books. I think there should be T-shirts like the one that you've got on, and with that background as well. I think there should be an art gallery that opens and you walk around, you listen to your music, you watch, you look at these, and that'd just be fantastic. Can someone make that?
I would love that. Yes.
Yeah. Could someone make that happen? Would that be all right? Can someone just find like an empty building that needs to be used properly and just make that happen? That would be great.
My DMs are open.
Oh, Brandon, you're absolutely blowing my mind today. I mean, I know it's towards the end of the day, but this is great. You're actually filling me with a lot of positive energy about wanting to create stuff, which is good. Do you feel like your music can do that for people? Do you feel like your music could actually encourage people to be more creative themselves?
I think so. Certainly the playfulness that you mentioned, many reviewers have felt the same thing. Many reviewers have commented that it does feel held together while going all over the place genre-wise. And of course, all of that is by design, but I'll say by way of yes-anding your thought, by means of yes-anding your thought, I want the layers of my work to have their own followable journey. It's not that you have to follow them to enjoy the song, but they're available to you. My primary source material on that, and this will loop back to one of your very first questions. There were two albums I encountered when I was 14 that basically set me on my way production-wise. Now, the Restless Mosaic project is only 5 years old, but I started I started fiddling with recordings age kind of 14 or 15. And it's two albums, one that was from 2000 and one from 1980. The 2001 is Lost Souls by the Doves.
Right. Yep.
Or by Doves, rather.
By Doves, yeah.
And what really set me on my way there, not just the chord progressions in songs like Here It Comes, but on Catch the Sun, there are these dueling guitar parts that are fairly well doing the same thing, but one is panned to one side and is incredibly warm in its tone, and the other is fairly trebly in its tone. But you don't realize the impact that one's been making on the other until the warm one drops out in the second to last chorus. Then when it returns, it brings all this. When I started noticing those things, it opened up this other world. But the more relevant to the creativity side of it is Peter Gabriel's Melt album. And if you listen to Games Without Frontiers, in particular, the synths, the bass, they almost never repeat a phrase. So you can, if you want to, almost like watching a DVD of a live performance where you can choose your camera angle. You can choose to follow David Rhodes' guitar. You can choose to follow Tony Levin's bass. You can choose to follow these different elements, and they result in a different experience because none of them are looped. None of them really repeat their figures. They're all variations on a theme. There's that filled glass aspect coming back again. And I mean, not only do I think that's a richer listening experience, it's also just literally more interesting for me to make.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was to do with the way that Peter used to write, especially in those days. He tended to start. I think everybody thought he started with piano or synths, but he didn't. He started with drums.
Yes,
and he would build up. But he'd be very conscious of making sure that didn't stay in the same place for too long.
And I'll also add to these influences. I'll list the secondary influence first and then the primary influence. But once I list them and why I'm listing them, it's going to make perfect sense to you. Secondarily, Orbital. And primarily Underworld.
I heard that.
That is awesome because what I think makes their music captivating is that within their sound environments, which are very idiosyncratic, very peculiar in particular to them, they spend the first bit of their song establishing the rules of this song. Then they spend the second half of the song breaking those rules. And that is so much of my perspective as well. And I think that's of a piece with the other things I've been saying. You lay a few foundational elements down. And it doesn't have to be a repeating figure. It can be just getting the mood right. It can be centering everything around your lyrics. That's an Underworld thing, to have this kind of hollow center of stream of consciousness lyrics. The melody's not that developed for most Underworld songs, and the lyrics are rarely truly important, but they give that center around which Rick Smith's productions build. Dirty Epic is my lodestone, is my text for all of these things. The way you can follow different layers moving in and out. But it links to that Peter Gabriel side. It links to that Doves side in my head.
Do you know what? I wore a Orbital style t-shirt for years.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's part of that where it's about it's music that is perfect journey music as well. That you're being taken on a journey. If you are sat on a train or something like that, you feel like you're moving as the music moves, and there's a as you say, there's a clearly set destination, and you know where you're going right from the beginning with a lot of Orbital's music. But as you go, the scenery changes, and it's really interesting. What a great conversation. What a great conversation.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it as well.
Oh, it's been phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you
for everything about this.
Thank you so much for coming on. Folks, Restless Mosaic, if you haven't checked it out, you can go and check it out on Bandcamp. There's 2 tracks of mine on Bandcamp. Don't listen to them. Go and listen to Restless Mosaic instead, because his is good. And I want you to know that. And please do go and support. And if you've enjoyed the music as well, do get in touch and let him know what what you feel about the music, what it means, etc. And if you've got that spare place where you can open it up and turn it into an art museum and do a dinner where people are listening and all of that. If you can make all of that happen because you're rich and whatever, just do, right? Because we'd be the world would be a better place with all of that in it. Thank you, my friend. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
Folks, thank you for listening. I hope you've really enjoyed that. There's some great moments in there as well, which you can take away, and you can go and listen to both his music and some of the ones that have been mentioned as well, and just kind of touch where some of that has come from. And if you've never heard of some of those artists, do go and check them out as well. This has been My Music. If you've enjoyed it, please do go and share with your friends and family. You can check out the reason behind My Music at mymusicpodcast.com, where you can also join the My Music community, which I'll be inviting Brandon to come into after this as well. We will be back soon with more of the same. But until then, bye for now.